So I have been currently doing an in-depth study of Jonah, and this verse stood out to me actually because, and it kind of reminds me, is we can say things but we don't actually really mean it, or we mean it but we mean it in a different way. So this is in Jonah chapter 1, and it is verse 9. So it says, "So he said to them, I am Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land." Now, that one word that says, well, not one word, those three words that say, "and I fear the Lord." Now, if you're unaware of the story of Jonah, I recommend that you do read it. But Jonah's actions would say that he doesn't really fear God as he says he fears him. Because first off, if he did really fear him, he wouldn't be running away from him in the first place, and he wouldn't be doing all this, and he wouldn't be oblivious to the fact that he had to be woken up. There was a storm on the boat, and he had to be woken up. That's how oblivious he was. But what we find out later on, that Jonah does have fear, but he has the fear for God in a very different way, and it's through his selfish beliefs, basically, because he feared God's true grace, because he wanted God to smite Nineveh. He didn't want Nineveh to get that second chance, but he knew if he went to Nineveh and preached the gospel, he would know that because God's mercy and grace, that in the end, if they do kind of turn to God, that he will spare their lives. And he didn't want that. So his fear for God was the worst kind of fear. His fear was fueled by his own selfishness, his own anger, because he did not, like, his anger towards Nineveh was so strong. It was so strong that he didn't want God to kind of be merciful towards them, because his anger was so bitter. So his hate, his fear towards God was in the wrong reasons. And this whole fear of God sometimes confuses people. So how are we supposed to fear God? So the reason why people say to fear God is that respect kind of thing, because if you don't have that respect for God, then you're gonna kind of ignore him, or you're gonna ignore some things and do the right things. It's kind of, you're gonna like pick and mix, because you're not that respectful towards God. You're not that fearful of what his actions could do towards you. So when people say fear God, I think I did a little short on this. It's not necessarily fear him to the point where you're scared to kind of talk to him. That's not that kind of fear that we talk about. The fear we talk about is to have that respect, of your God, and to know that his life, your life is in his hands. So respect what he wants you to do, respect his 10 commandments, respect all that. So it's not necessarily to fear him completely, but it's that respect kind of thing. And Jonah didn't show that respect. His fear was completely different. And if you look at the sailors and the sailors' journey, is the fact that first they feared the storm, and they truly feared the storm, and then they feared other gods, but because they were afraid, okay, what God's causing this? And then they feared, in the end, they feared Yahweh, and that was their true fear. That they feared. Where Jonah's fear is completely kind of like, it was, it's on his own kind of beliefs and everything like that. What he feared, he didn't actually fear the true picture. And I'd never really I never noticed this before until doing the Jonah study on the Bible project. But it's one of those things as well, where sometimes we say things, but we not necessarily don't mean it, but we could mean it in another way. And that's why it's kind of like important to know, okay, do I truly believe this? Do I truly believe that? And don't forget, God knows our heart. He literally knows our heart. He searches our heart. He knows when we're being genuine. He knows when we're not being genuine. That's why God's judgment is what do you call it? God's judgment is right, because he knows us completely. Like, we may try and put a facade, we may try put a facade for other people, but God knows us inside. Like, he knows what our true feelings are. So you can't hide away from God. You cannot hide away from God.